Elections Canada says hundreds of votes cast by some Ontario students this week are valid. Students at Guelph University cast early ballots on Wednesday in a bid to encourage young Canadians to vote. But the Conservatives complained the process was unfair. Terry Malewski has this story tonight from Sudbury, Ontario. Terry.
Well, Diana, sometimes in politics you get a free gift, and one came along today for Michael Ignatieff.
We can't have a prime minister sending in his people to break up an election where students are voting for the candidates of their choice.
Ignatieff constantly accuses the Conservatives of trampling on Canadian democracy. Enter the students of Guelph, Ontario, who've been running a non-partisan Get Out the Vote campaign. About 700 of them did vote in a special advance poll, but the Conservatives tried to have those votes scrapped, saying the special poll was illegal. Students say one Conservative even tried to seize the ballot box.
And then someone barged right in and said that this was an illegal polling station. It was a gentleman, and he said he was going to take the ballot box, and he tried to take the ballot box.
It was really disrespectful to, first of all, the students waiting in line to vote, also the Elections Canada's officers, and the voting process itself, because it was disrupted. And then there's
But now Elections Canada says the poll did follow the Elections Act, and those student votes are valid.
There's a constant recurring pattern with Mr. Harper, which is a concerted attempt to drive young Canadians away from the polls.
The Conservatives backpedaled and dropped their bid to throw out the Guelph votes.
Our concern is simply that the rules for advanced polling, that all the rules of the election be respected, and that is our sole concern in this particular matter.
I want to see an investigation into this attempt to block students from casting their vote. You know, this kind of intimidation and harassment is wrong. Of course, everybody should follow the rules, but what are the Conservatives up to here?
Now, tonight, the Conservatives are insisting that they applaud Election Canada's decision to let those Guelph votes stand. But somehow it seems likely that their rivals are clapping a little harder. Diana.
Thanks, Terry. All three parties involved now say they support the immediate release of thousands of documents about Afghan detainees. A panel of judges was to release those documents today, but with Parliament dissolved, they said they needed an agreement from Stephen Harper, Michael Ignatieff, and Gilles Duceppe to do that. The documents are expected to reveal what the Harper government knew about the possible torture of detainees. Well, there's a big, scary-sounding ad on TV and Twitter these days warning Canadians that if the Liberals are elected, they'll impose a $75 iPod tax. And not just for iPods, all MP3 players and smartphones. There's just one problem. Our reality check reporter Keith Bogue explains.
Here's the claim.
An iPod tax, a brand new tax that'd have you paying up to $75 more for iPods, smartphones, personal video recorders, MP3 players, and just about anything with a hard drive.
It's simple, straightforward. If any of the opposition parties gets their way, there will be a $75 tax on things like Apple's iPod. But think about it. That's a whopping big tax for an iPod that costs about $280.
I honestly don't believe it. It's not believable at all.
If the TV ad doesn't ring true to you either, that may be because it isn't.
And that's basically just sort of a ploy against just to get young people's votes, I think, more so than... they put a lot of money into the ad, but it's not necessarily believable.
Where is the evidence that...
In fact, when Conservative candidate Pierre Poilievre was asked about it on CBC's Power and Politics this week, he said this.
I think the $75 is roughly in line with estimates that we think that Canadians will be forced to pay.
That's right. In other words, the $75 is a number they just made up. Poilievre later said he didn't know what the real number might be and suggested asking the opposition parties. The NDP's Brian Massey said this.
We support a $5 levy.
And Liberal leader Michael Ignatieff said this on the campaign trail.
It is false. It is not in the platform. Did you guys think? Did anybody? No, no iPod tax.
So how did all of this get started in the first place? Well, a year ago, the opposition parties did vote in favor of a small levy on such things as MP3 players. That levy was intended to compensate artists who otherwise would get paid when their work was copied. But that legislation died when the election was called. Keith Bogue, CBC News, Toronto.